What's up, guys? It is Will here, back again, and tonight we are here for a very special, tragic, even depending upon who you ask, but I'm going to analyze this very thoroughly because as the aforementioned, the Loki expert in the community, like self-proclaimed Loki expert, we need to dissect the final product photos that were shown by Hot Toys for the Avengers Endgame Loki. Because guys, you know, this is my most anticipated figure. I've been waiting for this figure for 3 years now. It has been the grail to end all grails. I even said before Pennywise even. And I love Pennywise, number 2. But Loki was always the grail that I was most looking forward to. With that said, we need to address this controversy and go over my thoughts on this Avengers Endgame Loki from Hot Toys. Guys, let's waste no time. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to go over a couple different things in this video. I think this is going to be a very unique one. So, last night when I was asleep, Hot Toys shared this Loki update final product for Avengers Endgame Loki, right? So I got a million messages. Never felt more popular than I did last night. Got a million messages, got a million tags, phone calls even, Carlos, Riley calling me and stuff like that. I did not wake up. I slept right through it. So they showed the Hot Toys Loki. You can see the detail in the eyes there and the face, the helmet, all that good stuff. This is the final product for Avengers Endgame Loki. I want to show a couple more photos before I give my thoughts here. They showed Doctor Strange too, but honestly, I'm probably not going to have time to preview Doctor Strange in the next day or so. I got to put these clips up from last night's stream and I got to go over Loki. So guys, we're looking at this Loki here. Okay, let me give my initial impressions of this. So when I originally saw these photos, I saw these photos and I was like, hey, when I woke up in the morning, why is there no head sculpt that does not show, no photo rather, that does not show the Loki head sculpt without the helmet on? I was very concerned. I was like, okay, is this maybe one of those situations where you cannot remove the helmet? They decided that maybe it was too difficult to mix the hair and the helmet. And they were like, okay, fuck it. Like you're just putting the helmet on. That's it. Because everyone's going to put the helmet on anyway. That's just how it's going to be. That's originally what I thought because none of the photos showed him without the helmet. So I was like, what is going on here? Something is freaky. Something is off. So then my thought was, okay, let's look at this head sculpt and see how it compares to the prototype. In comparison to the prototype, this head sculpt is worse. There's no doubt about it. I think I look at this and I'm thinking, okay, and I originally said for the longest time, I thought the prototype head sculpt was pretty good. I never thought it was a 10, but I was happy with it. I thought it was like a 9. I really liked it. I liked it more than the TVA Loki head sculpt. Well, this head sculpt is a little bit of a decline. There's no doubt about it. When I look at this head sculpt with the helmet on, I don't know how bold this is. I've heard a lot of extreme claims, right? And I think there's a lot that I want to address in this preview video. So, Loki with the helmet on, to me, I think this is an 8. An 8 head sculpt. I really don't think this is the best thing I've ever seen, not by a long stretch. I also don't think it's the worst thing I've ever seen, not by a long stretch. Look, I'm willing to admit that I'm giving preferential treatment because it's Loki. But I'm trying to put that aside and be as objective as I possibly can be here. When I look at this figure, I don't see a 6 head sculpt. I don't see a 5 head sculpt. I don't see even a 7. When you take the helmet off, yes, I see a 7 at best. This head sculpt with the helmet off is not very good. The hairline's a mess. It's all over the place. It doesn't really look good. There's a photo that's been going around on Facebook that was shared by a collector who has this Loki in hand. I mean, guys, it's not the collector's fault. It's just a very harsh photo, right? If you take an iPhone or a phone with a super wide angle lens, put it up to the head sculpt like this and just in its face, almost no figure is going to look good. That's very difficult to pull off in a way that's going to have anyone freaking out. You put that up to the NR Joker, I think it'll look better than the Loki did, no doubt. But I think it's going to be one of those where you're like, oh, like, did we pay too much? Are we freaking out, right? I think that inevitably, if you give that angle and show that head sculpt that way, it's going to freak people out. This is not to say that this Loki head sculpt is what we hoped for. It's not. It's not as good as we hoped. It's not a 10. It's not a Yondu, right? But I don't think it's an Ant-Man either. I think it's somewhere in between. I don't have it in hand yet, but just looking at these photos, I think it's somewhere in between. I think with the helmet on, it makes things a lot better. When I look at this, right, I don't see a figure that I would be super incredibly disappointed with here. If I was not a huge Loki fan, yes, I might be super disappointed because the character is not beloved enough by me to accept a product that is inferior to the prototype significantly. I do think this is pretty, I mean, if you're going 1 point less, that's significant, right? It's not nothing. It's not nothing. But when I look at this figure and I see kind of what it looks like in the product photos, look at that. I don't think that's atrocious. I think you put that on your shelf and people are going to know exactly who it is. It's definitely not as good as we hoped it would be, but it's not the worst thing I've ever seen either. So I kind of want to maybe ease some of the tensions with that because I understand also the argument that Hot Toys has had several misses lately. That is a fact. It is true. There have been several misses with these head sculpts. Hot Toys clearly has something going on. They're spread too thin. Something is wrong, right? This does not mean that Hot Toys is falling apart and they're terrible. They've also released a lot of bangers, right? The reissues, they're always good. No reason to change them. I've had the original Avengers Loki. This one is better. This one is definitely better. I mean, it's one of those things where I think you just have to take a step back from it. It's very difficult. I do this. We all do it in collecting. All of us do it. I've done it a million times. It's very difficult to not overreact to blogger photos. Super difficult. Because when you see that first final product, you get excited and you want to make a snap judgment right then. I do it. We all do it. Everyone's guilty of this. But I'm just saying, with Loki, I have a little more flexibility because I'm going to get this figure pretty much anyway. If this were not a tier 1 character for me, a tier 1A character, this is probably my favorite character of all time. This and Kylo Ren are my two, and Joel are my three favorite characters, right? From The Last of Us. If this were not on that level, yeah, maybe I would think twice. But when I look at this, I still think this is going to be an amazing Loki in my collection. Is it as good as I hoped it would be? No, it's not. It's not. But I'm still probably going to be pretty satisfied with it. I want to share something else to show you guys because there were some, and I'm doing this in StreamYard just for the sake of time. 6Scale Koyu showed a video, right? He did a review. So I don't know if people have seen this. The lighting is pretty solid. I'm going to share some of this, right? We're looking at this. The hair, yeah, the hair is a bit of a mess. I think this was clearly done because they prioritized the helmet. Because I think they knew, right or wrong, that people were going to wear the helmet 95% of the time, if not more. Most people, I know this is an Endgame figure and he mostly didn't have the helmet on, right? But you're not buying this figure to put it in an Endgame lineup, really. You're buying it because it represents the best version of Avengers 1 Loki, which is the most iconic look and version of Loki. That's why you're buying it. For 95% of people, I'd be willing to bet. I look at the tailoring, far better than the first one, trust me. The first one was pretty baggy. We look at the head sculpt, yeah, the hair. It looks, this is like a combination of Dark World, the original Avengers Loki head sculpt, and kind of the TVA one, the new one too. It's like a mishmash of all those three, right? And it's not as good as we hoped it would be. When I look at this head sculpt with the hair, without the helmet, I think it's like a 7 at best. It's off. It's off. It's not great Tom Hiddleston, but I know who it's trying to be. But it's just not quite there, and it's not the Hot Toys capability for what they can fully do. But part of the reason I want to show this video is because I want to show this. He's putting the helmet on, right? Let's look at the transition, right? And this is not even, look, no insult to the reviewer. This is not the best lighting ever, right? But it's not bad. The reviewer's doing a great job. And he's illustrating how to put the helmet on. Okay, let's look at this figure now in different lighting than the blogger photos. We put the helmet on him, right? And this is not even, like I said, top tier like lighting or anything, but it's still pretty good. I don't see anything that looks super atrocious there. I'm sorry. I know I'm a huge Loki fan, but look at this. You're telling me that you would put this Loki on your shelf in its current form with this head sculpt. Like, look at this angle right now that we're seeing it. And you would think that, oh, that's just so atrocious. It can't be in my collection. I find that hard to believe. I'm not trying to excuse poor quality work or mediocre work, right? This is not up to Hot Toys' strongest capabilities. They're clear, like we've seen Yondu, we've seen Hela, we've seen Killmonger, we've seen Tarkin, Obi-Wan, Alec Guinness, right? Those are top tier 10 out of Dooku, 10 out of 10 head sculpts, or 9, 5, whatever out of 10, right? This is not on that level. And we hoped it would be, or I did, but it's not. It's not. So I don't mean to excuse poor performance, but when I look at this figure, I don't see an atrocity, not with the helmet on. When I see this, yeah, that's disappointing. Would it have been nice to have a separate head sculpt with a hair that maybe wasn't built for the helmet, or maybe a swappable hair piece or something? Yeah, that would have been ideal. I wish Hot Toys did that, but they didn't. They didn't. And it sucks. And I'm going to criticize them for that because that would have been the ideal move. The ideal move would have been to give a separate head sculpt or an exchangeable hair and a swappable hair piece where maybe the hair would look a little more natural. This was clearly built so the helmet would naturally fit around the hair and not scratch the head so easily. This is kind of, I mean, that honestly, if you've had the original Avengers version, that's kind of what the hair looked like too. It did. It pretty much did. Because I had it for years. So, and when I see this, putting Scepter in his hand, I get it. Look, I can't really zoom in enough to show you, but the thumb has a gap. I don't like that. Let me just be clear. I do not like that the thumb looks like that. I honestly can't remember if the original had that or not. It may have. I don't remember seeing that. I don't think it did, but I'm honestly not sure. I'm guessing if that is to wrap around the scepter naturally. There had to have been a better way to do this. I don't know why they chose to do it this way, but they did, right? Let me also show one more thing here. This is an Instagram post from a collector who has this Loki. I'm going to zoom way in so you can see this pretty well. The lighting is dim, I get that. It's hard to tell too much. But when you look at this, do you see atrocity? I don't. I don't. Do I see a 10? No, I don't. Again, I'm going to keep driving that point home. I don't see an absolutely horrid figure. You're telling me that would not pop on a shelf even with that head sculpt? Look, if you want to get a custom head sculpt and put it on there and make it look a little bit better, by all means. But I think, honestly, I'm going to be very happy with this Loki. Again, it's not the gold standard grail that we were hoping for. Yes, Hot Toys deserves criticism for that and for how long they took to deliver this and it to be below what we hoped it would be. However, I don't think it's a total absolute loss of a figure. And I'm happy to take that stance. Look, I'm willing to admit maybe there's some bias coming to play here because Loki is my tier 1 character, right? He's my guy. However, that also gives me, I think, you could also flip the argument and say that I'm more critical because I love Loki so much. When I look at like Kylo Ren stuff, for example, I looked at that Kylo Ren premium format, the one from Rise of Skywalker that Sideshow did. I think that head sculpt is atrocious. I think it's terrible. But I love Kylo Ren, so I have high standards for the character. I have high standards for Loki, and I hope this would be better. But again, I don't see anything that I'm like, oh my God, I will fucking cancel my pre-order right this second. I think that's an overreaction. We all do it. There's nothing inherently, inhuman about it. It's very human to react quickly to things. We do it with news headlines. We do it with figures. We do it with everything. We see a headline on the news. We don't even bother reading the whole article. And we jump in and we say, oh, our mind's made up, right? That's what we do with figures too. We do it with statues. We all do it. We're all guilty of it. And I'm not saying that you're a terrible person or collector because you've done that. If you think this figure is genuinely bad, that is your opinion. That's totally subjectivity at play there. That's totally fine. That's your prerogative. I don't see that personally with the head sculpt. With the helmet on, I think this figure is pretty good. With the helmet off, I understand. It's not great. But the helmet on is how 95% of people are going to display it. Yes, you're paying $260 for it. You want the head sculpt to be good. You're paying a premium price. Totally get it. I get it. And Hot Toys should be held their feet to the fire for that. It's the same thing that goes with, Bo-Katan or any other figure, right? Iron Man even. When we look at figures and what we're paying for them, even though we're not planning to use the head sculpt, we want it to be good so we have the option, right? For what you're paying, that's not too much to ask. And like I said, Hot Toys should be held accountable for that. However, I really don't believe that everyone should be overreacting so extensively to go and cancel their pre-orders, to say that Hot Toys is finished, or to say that Loki is a terrible figure and we waited so long. We don't know that yet. And I'm not even saying that you have to get it in hand to say whether you like it or not. I'm just saying that wait a little bit longer before you do something so drastic and, see what the reviews look like. See what the first look like from Sideshow, right? There's going to be reviews. There's going to be first looks. Then make your determination. I'm not saying you have to drop the money and get it in hand for you to make an informed decision. You don't. I've never believed that. But I do feel like we need to sometimes, we all do this, sometimes take a step back, look at what the lighting situation for some of these things is. And sometimes blogger photos are misleading, right? How many people, and again, I'm not saying that Rey Rise of Skywalker is a Yondu head sculpt, right? But how many people shat all over that Rey and then turned around and wanted to buy it when no one else bought it? Because reviewers started getting it and everyone loved it. How many times does that happen? At least a couple that I can think of, right? Killmonger was another one. People shit all over that. People also shit on the Jake Gyllenhaal Mysterio. Yes, most people are probably going to use the Mysterio helmet. That's the same with Loki. You're probably going to use the helmet, and it's not the end of the world if so. I know there's a face sculpt underneath compared to a fishbowl, but you get what I'm going for here. So what I would say, I still feel like I said this figure came out pretty good. Am I super ultra disappointed? No. Am I a little disappointed? Yes. I think there's a middle ground to be found there instead of one extreme polarization or the other. That's what I would say. So guys, sorry this one got a little more preachy and soapboxy than normal, but I do think it's important sometimes that we all sort of recognize the things we do and see if, we can analyze them a little bit. That's what I would say. I do it. I've reacted to things really quickly. I still do it, right? Sometimes it just helps to have someone say like, okay, maybe just like, let's wait a little bit longer. But there's nothing wrong with sharing your initial reaction. Sharing your initial reaction and saying, I think this is a 7 or a 6. I think this is terrible. That's fine. I'm just saying wait a little bit before you make you close the book on it and say, I'm canceling my pre-order, or I'm canceling this, I'm canceling that. Maybe sometimes we rush to judgment too quickly. And then we look back and we're like, okay. But I do, on the same token, I do think this figure will be discounted. I think there will be plenty of discounts to be had on it. It's probably going to be an overproduced figure. I do think there is demand for it, however. It didn't come out as good as people hope, but demand for the character and this version of the character, because the outrage that I have seen over this character shows that people care about him. So, and they care about this version specifically. With that said, guys, thanks so much for watching this preview video, and there'll be more content to come. I'll have those clips up from the live stream soon. Hopefully, I got to edit them. And yeah, so appreciate you watching this preview, and I guess we'll chat soon. I know this one's a little bit longer than usual, but it was important. So guys, thank you so much for joining. Bye. I'll see you. Bye.